would like to call this regular meeting of Kimberley City Council to order for October the 23rd, held here on the homeland of the Ktunaxa peoples. Welcome, Councillor McGuire. Woody is in California, joining us this evening. Can you hear us okay, Woody?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks very much for dialing in tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, do we have any late items, Maurice? I see two that made the agenda.
There is no more late items. No other late items.
Okay, we'll deal with the first one when we are discussing the DVP for 253 Stemwinder, and we'll take number 2 and make that number 8 under new business right after we do the check run. All right, with those additions, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting, which was held on June the 7th. The mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. We also have the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on August the 21st. The mover, please. Councillor Dunneback moves and Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, we have the minutes of the regular meeting held on October the 10th. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, with the formalities out of the way, we do have a delegation this evening. Welcome, Pam. It's great to have you here tonight. Pam Warkentine is here to talk to us about the Radon Test Kit Challenge and the community follow-up presentation for our pleasure. Pam, over to you.
All right, thanks so much. And I'll just wait till the presentation is on the screen. I'm with the Take Action on Radon initiative, which is a national initiative funded by Health Canada. It's our goal for Take Action is to raise awareness on radon across the country, and the 100 Test Kit Challenge is part of that initiative, one of our projects. And so it is funded all by Health Canada, and so that's what I'm presenting on tonight. So I'll get you to jump to my first slide. And so the 100 Test Kit Challenge is as part of our goals of raising awareness, it's a good project to be able to do that because it does provide kits to the community members immediately. And it's a turnkey project, but it does require staff time. So we're really thankful for Troy and his team to be able to support us with this project. And so on my next slide with the map, we have done this project all across Canada in every province except for PEI, with over 14,000 kits distributed. So Kimberley's not alone. We've been able to do this in quite a number of communities. Would it be easier if I shared my screen? I'm not sure if there's a delay or if I... Yeah, that's when I'll be on. Perfect. Okay, great. And so just a quick basics about radon. Radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and it does greatly increase a smoker's chance of getting lung cancer. And in fact, Health Canada estimates over 3,000 Canadians per year die of radon-related lung cancer. And so it really is an important thing to pay attention to. Lung cancer is preventable. So testing and reducing radon levels is an important measure for people to prevent future lung cancers. And then on the next slide, you'll see that it is something that's naturally occurring. It comes from the soil. So uranium is from radon is eventually from uranium. It's found in the soil rock all across the country. Eventually, when uranium decays, it comes into radon, which is a gas, and now it can filter up out of the air. So it's in the air all around us at low levels, but our concern is that it is coming into buildings where the building has contact with the soil and there's openings to the building. And we're building all of our structures, our houses and other buildings nice and airtight from the sides and the roof, but they're still allowed to have openings from the bottom, and so we are seeing the gas come in but not escape it, and so it's building up to higher levels. And so Health Canada recommends that any building that is over 200 would be reduced, but the first step is to test to see what those levels are. And so on the next slide, you'll see an example of one of these reports. So through the 100 Test Kit Challenge, we were able to distribute over 100 detectors to residents in Kimberley. And by now, each participant who completed the whole process of testing and returning the test to us should have received by email their report. And certainly if people forgot to set up their kits, it's not too late. We did have 69% of those reports issued, so there are still some out there that either we haven't got all the right information yet, or perhaps not everybody finished the test. So those are still can be used, and will still help people with getting their tests. They can always email us if they haven't received them yet. But today I'm presenting on the summary report, and so on the next slide you'll see that from the reports that were issued, we have 59% of the homes were tested above 200. And so in the pie chart, you can see that how the numbers break down. So the green are the number of homes that tested under 100. Yellow are the percentage and number of homes that tested between 1 and 200. And then red are the ones that tested between 2 and 600. And then we did also have homes that tested between 6 and 1,000. And then also some homes test above 1,000. And so the black is above 1,000, and the purple represents those between 600 and 1,000. And so as part of the survey, we also asked people a few questions, and so these are optional. So in the next slide, you can see that we asked people about what type of dwelling they had. And so we did have single detached homes, mobile homes, and then an apartment as well participate. And so you can see that there were mostly the single detached homes that participated, and but there was one mobile home that did test high. And then also an apartment, but that one tested low. Another question that we ask is whether they individuals own or rent. And so on the next slide, you'll see that we did have a bit of a mix. So most people did own their own homes that participated, but there were some people that were rented. And a particular importance of this was that 4 of them did have levels above 200. And so those individuals may need additional support with communicating with their landlords to make sure that the levels are reduced, because really it's up to the building owner often to reduce those levels and take the measures to install mitigation systems. And then on the next slide, you'll see another question that we asked was the year of construction. And so the top bar is the year not specified. So sometimes not everybody knew what year their house was built, or just chose not to answer this question. But from this graph, you can see that it doesn't really matter what age of home that you live in. Any age can have high levels of radon. And so we are seeing both high and low levels across the spectrum. We know that there are building code measures that are in place, and so that is something that we are continuing to look at, that even in new homes, people still need to test their home for radon and determine whether they need a fan. So the new home measures don't fix it, they just make it a little bit easier to fix. All right, and then on the next slide, you'll see that this is now the public-facing report. So we've taken just the simplified data of the radon reports and rolled it up into a community-facing report, and I shared this with you, but then we have also posted online, and we'll share it out with the participants. And so this, on the page 1, on the left side of the screen, just shows you the number of homes in green that are under 100, and then yellow are between 1 and 200, and red are above 200. And so we just simplify the stats for this graph, including just the red. And so on the first page, it's really mostly community specific to tell how many homes participated in the project and a little bit of basics about radon. On the second or back page of the document, it has some basic information about radon, what levels are important. So the arrow tells you the range of what your report is and when you should be fixing it. There's a little picture of a radon mitigation system and some information about what it means to reduce your radon, and then also about the building codes in BC, and so some basic general information about radon. All right, and then on the next slide, you can see that Kimberley's not alone in having levels of percentage of homes above 50. This graph shows you not only the surveys that we have done in the bright red, we also included a survey that the community of Castlegar also has completed in darker red. So these are the surveys that we know of at a community level across BC. And the light peach is the average survey that Health Canada did in 2011, 2012. They published their data at a provincial level. So often we quote 8% for homes above guideline in the province of BC. But when we look at a community level, you can see that the stats are much different than that. And so we are seeing a number of high percentage homes across the province. But we also provide information to each homeowner about who they can access to fix it. So there is a national certification program, and we do have a list of professionals from the province of BC and in the area. So they can call on somebody to help them with fix. The certification program provides training and then also an accountability program as far as the certification program, so that homeowners can call on them to help fix it. And then the other good news is there's also a national grant. So on the next page, you'll see that the Canadian Lung Association has developed a mitigation support grant. So anyone who has been diagnosed with lung cancer themselves can apply for this grant, or anybody who's considered low to moderate income also can apply. And so that's available to people all across the country. They just need to apply prior to getting the mitigation done, submit a copy of their radon test report, and then also a quote from the mitigation. And then on the next slide, there is some support for the cost of mitigation. So if somebody is using their home as a work, they can actually claim the cost of the measurement on their tax credit, but this doesn't apply to the cost of mitigation. So that's why we're also looking for different programs to help support the costs for people of mitigation. And then just finally, as far as supports for the municipalities, on the next slide, you'll see, next couple slides, you'll see that the Health Canada has developed some radon action guides. And so they've pulled some examples of what other municipalities have done across Canada, including building codes, promoting radon awareness on websites, testing their government offices, and ensuring all other public buildings are tested as well. And so there is a list in the radon action guides. And so we've put together a couple checklists on the next couple slides. You can see the next one has a copy of the radon action guides that Health Canada has developed. And so these are publicly available, and we'll share, we've shared the link on the presentation so you can go in and take a look directly, but we've just included a couple quick snapshots of some of the information as a checklist for you on this slide, and then you can go through the next couple slides. Yeah, and the next one as well. And so these just provide just some quick summaries of some of the information, the access guides for your information and support, but you can also read the whole guide entirely. All right, and that's all I have to present tonight, but I certainly would love to answer any questions if there are any.
Wow, nicely done, Pam. You covered an awful lot of ground there. I'm sure there are several questions. Council, go ahead, Councillor Royer.
So, what is your name again? Sorry, Pam?
Pam.
Pam.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Pam.
I got it right. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
The only thing that I am concerned about is when you build a new building shift and form cracks, so the radon level might be higher 5 years down the road. So is there like a follow-up? Like, can you do another test in 5 years or 10 years?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. We are finding that new buildings the concrete is shrinking and levels can change. And so right now, currently Health Canada's guidance really doesn't cover repeat testing, but our recommendation is that you would consider testing every 5 years, and especially in a new home, you might want to test maybe the third year or so, test when you first move in, but then again, maybe in a couple of years after the concrete has shrunk. And then if in an existing home. I myself, my home has increased. So I was in my home. I tested the first year. It's a 1980s home, so it has nothing to do with old being new. But you know, weather and things can change, and so I tested again a couple years later, and levels were higher.
So thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, so I've just learned that, pretend just that I've just learned that I have radon and I need to do mitigation. What is mitigation? What is that in 5 sentences?
Yeah, so the most effective method is radon, a radon mitigation system, which involves a pipe which goes through the concrete floor or the foundation of a home and provides a pathway up and out. And so this can be installed in such a way that the fan would just provide a little bit of air movement, so that instead of the air coming up through cracks in the house, it now chooses that path and out. So it's also can be called a depressurization system, but it's really effective. It can be installed by certified professionals, and it reduces levels to 95% of what they were before.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dunneback.
Just by looking at your graph here and your presentation, which was great, thank you. It looks to me like it's a venting issue. I can see like in 2011 to 2014, there's no green. I wonder where Zero Net House comes into play with that, and if the radon is higher, or if that's
With a net,
built into the house. If you could explain that to me, that'd be awesome.
so I just to clarify your question, like in a net zero house, is that what you're asking? How the radon levels are?
Yeah, just because they're so sealed, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Correct me
so
if I'm wrong.
Right. No, and I mean, it really depends on how effective the house has been built and how that is sealed. But we've seen in some of our older homes too that that they might be leaky at first, but as they get tightened up and maybe retrofits are done to increase energy efficiency, that the levels can go up. And so we are seeing that our houses are being really built quite tight from the ground up, but it's the contact with the ground that we are concerned, and a lot of that is because the concrete shifting and shrinking, and so because the gas moves from a place of high pressure to low pressure, it can be changed depending on how the occupant uses the house. So really, a net zero house or any house, we can't predict how much gas is going to come in, but it really depends. A lot of the homes have exhaust fans that are drawing air out, so they're really airtight, so they may not be allowing air in. But you know, a kitchen fan, a bathroom vent fan is still drawing air out, and so unless that's being replaced at the same percentage, it's drawing some kind of gas from the ground, and radon is coming in from that.
Okay.
So Pam, new home construction, it's in the code that there needs to be a vent. But for renovations of any description, there is not. Is that correct? And if that's correct,
yeah.
why would that not have been addressed, I wonder?
Currently, I believe the building code just covers new construction, or some exceptions, just depending on it. And so, yeah, existing construction is certainly one of our focuses, to make sure that people know that this is something they should test and fix. And really, it can be done in an existing home, so it's nothing to be concerned about. Our professionals can go in. Really, it involves drilling in a concrete foundation, drilling about a 5-inch hole so that they can put the pipe through to the sub space, digging a bit of a suction pit. So it might be, 16 liters or something of the gravel or whatever is under the foundation to create a bit of a section pit. And then they can do, you know, some remarkable things to be able to tell it, or to be able to get a bit of a communication under the slab. And then they can tell if they're being effective by drilling some really small holes at the far corners of the slab, and they'll just test the air pressure. So they can draw air in one spot of the building and then just measure the air pressure in other corners to see if it's an effective. So it can actually be done quite effectively even in existing buildings. But the idea with the new construction code is it will be more efficient, and really all that should be needed if it's properly installed and the proper pipe is used is a fan.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Royer?
Is there any chance in the future we could have something similar to a smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, radon detector? Is there a possibility?
For sure. And the devices that we used in this project are one-use devices, but we actually have been doing research, and we're just about to publish a report on the smart devices that are available. And when we do, we describe a number of the different features of them. And so you can see that there are some devices that are coming on the market that could be used similar to a smoke detector. I think one goal now is just to get the price points down so it's a little closer in price as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Dunneback, did you have something to add?
So I guess like this is awesome and I love the awareness. But the one concern I have is you see lots of people buying and flipping homes, and there's old foundation there and it's cracked and broken. And how efficient is a radon fan going to be if they drill a hole in one side of the slab when essentially the other side of the slab is crumbling? Like, I feel like there has to be some sort of, if there's going to be a large renovation to an older house, that there has to be a said radon test before it passes being
Transitioned.
final inspection
From-
type of thing, so that we know that the new owners are somewhat protected, and rather than thinking that they have this radon protection fan in there, and then 2 years later they do a fan and it's up over the 600 marker, just for a number. I guess, yeah, just my concern is you see these old houses being flipped and sort of lipsticked, and people thinking that they have a house that's at the time of the test passed, and then realize that it's not exactly what it is. And if there's some kind of governance for that, or just a thought, or a comment, or
Do you want to make a last comment on that, Pam?
So there is in BC on the property disclosure statement a clear message about testing for radon and including disclosing results. So the way that we've been trying to go at it is to educate real estate agents so that they're asking people before they sell or after they sell to test, and bringing it to, you know, the purchasers' attention and building awareness that way. And so really because of the long-term test, it's an awkward way to regulate. Testing is awkward to regulate during a transaction. And so we are really trying to build awareness with the real estate agents on it.
Awesome, thanks. Last question.
Thank you, Pam. You know, Pam, I've heard about and been aware of radon for going on 30 years. But I have to say, your awareness piece is probably going to be the most important thing that you're doing. I knew about radon. I didn't know if I had any radon. I didn't know radon did anything. I didn't think it was anything I needed to think about or worry about. So I really think that your statistics here about people that are having responses with lung cancer kind of borders on the concept of what it was like to be involved with asbestos. And nobody knew at the time that it was doing that to you. So I really appreciate that, the fact that the health people are coming into it from that health point of view, and that awareness piece seems to me where you have to go, where you are, what you're doing is important. And thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts. Thanks so much, Pam, for the presentation. This is not only an interesting but a very important area that is not as well known as it should be. You've helped spread that word tonight. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for your time.
All right. Next up, we have the City of Kimberley Recreation Facilities Rental Rates Bylaw. And we have a couple of motions on the floor. The first is that council rescind third reading of bylaw number 2748, which is the existing rental rates bylaw. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cairns, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. Any discussion? Discussion to follow? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next motion is that council amend bylaw 2748, which is the recreation and facilities rental rates bylaw, to correct several clerical errors. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns, thank you. Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2748 as amended. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor Cairns seconds. We should have, and this is the point where we'll have the discussion. Cole, are you going to speak to this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me this evening to discuss the recreation facilities rental rate bylaw. Presented in front of you is a request for considerations for the amendment to this bylaw. Essentially, what we've done is reviewed the fees associated with our facilities, and staff has recommended a 6% increase in both 2023 and 2024 to be reevaluated once we receive the findings of the Parks and Facilities Master Plan. Essentially, what we've done is just put a summary of some of the key changes that you'll find within the bylaw. Again, the 6% increase, some rounding fees were completed. We combined some fees at the ICE facilities, so it would be easier for administration purposes. We included a call out and cleaning fee for our users that were outside of regular services. And we also included definitions for each of the various elements of the bylaw, which were previously included. If anybody has any questions, I welcome them now for discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. Council. Fairly straightforward. I think it's important to note that all of our recreation facilities, we do not make money on them, nor do we intend to. However, we look at rates and fees regularly to make sure that the hole that we're in doesn't get any deeper. We're just trying to tread water on this, make sure that they are affordable for the user groups, but at the same time, making sure that we're looking out for taxpayer money, who both funds the usage and the deficit. Okay, I thought you were putting your hand up there, Councillor McBain. That was close. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the permissive tax exemption bylaw for consideration of adoption. And the motion is that council adopt the City of Kimberley permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2749, 2023. Councillor Royer moves and Councillor Cairns seconds. Discussion. Jim, I know we've talked about this a couple of times, but for public consumption, if you could do it one more time, that'd be great.
Certainly. Just briefly, Mr. Mayor. So this bylaw received first three readings of council at the last regular meeting. What this bylaw will do, if adopted, is provide property tax exemptions to not-for-profit organizations, community groups, the largest of which is the Kimberley Health Center, exemption from tax for a period of 5 years. So there's a schedule attached to the bylaw here that provides each of the exemptions being proposed. The total of those is $183,984. And if for whatever reason, one of these properties that the exemption relates to changes use or changes hands such that it's not eligible anymore, it'll just fall off the list and it'll start to be taxed once that happens.
Which is one of the reasons, I guess, why we do this every year, is to make sure that that is up to date.
Yeah, this one is actually, this bylaw is for 5 years, but what we're asking is that in order to receive the exemption, everybody was asked to submit a very comprehensive application. And every year they're required to submit a one pager just indicating that they still own the property and they're still using it for the same purpose. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that. Council, any questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Jim. Next up, we have development variance permit for 229 Stemwinder Drive, and the motion on the floor is the council approve said permit. Motion from Councillor Royer and Councillor McBain seconds. Right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so just a few quick notes to confirm that notice was sent out to adjacent property owners and residents following the last meeting, and no items or no submissions or comments were received in response to that mail out. And so staff is recommending that we proceed with approval of the requested variance, which, as a reminder, will simply add about 15 square meters of additional floor area, less than 200 square feet. And this is to accommodate the accessibility needs of the property owners. And will result in the construction of 2 new fully accessible and functional dwelling units at this address.
All right, thank you. Council, questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, first up on next up, I'd like to have a motion to receive the late correspondence that relates to this item. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Thank you for that. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And then we'll deal with the DVP, which is the recommendation is that council approve development variance permit to vary the sections as identified in the report and increase the maximum site coverage from 0.35 to 0.45 to facilitate the construction of a deck. Mover, please. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor Karen seconds. All right, discussion. Troy, we had some discussion on this last time. Could you kind of fill us in on what's happened since?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, similarly, following discussion at the last meeting, staff did send notice to adjacent property owners and residents, pointing out the 2 different variances that were proposed or requested by the property owners. And so those are to increase the size of the deck, increase the site coverage to allow for the larger deck of 0.35 to 0.45, and also to increase the projection of the deck into a side yard setback area from 1.5 meters to 2.12 meters, resulting in the deck being as close as 0.38, or just a little bit more than 1 foot from the east parcel line. So that's the way the notice was provided of the proposed variances. We did get 1 letter of response that council received as a late item here just moments ago that outlines some concerns with the proposed variances there. As we discussed last meeting, staff had identified some concerns with the extent of variances proposed here. Kind of pointing out that it's significant proposal, significantly large deck being proposed here in the backyard, pretty much doubles the footprint of the existing structure. Staff had recommended that that perhaps council support still a variance to site coverage, but not quite as large as requested, but not to support the projection of the deck into the side yard setback. This would still allow for a fairly substantial deck to be built in the backyard, but would help to mitigate some of the concerns to the neighbor to the east there. So that's the motion that's been moved tonight is in line with staff's recommendation there to just approve the single variance for the extra site coverage. And let's leave it at that unless there's any questions.
All right, council. Questions or comments on this one? Go ahead, Councillor Cairns.
Thanks, Troy. I just, it looks like from the concerns that have been raised by both staff and by the neighbor, that those concerns well, definitely by the staff. They address the staff concerns. It appears that it would address the neighbors' concerns as well, because they talk about the height of the deck sitting at the existing fence line just below it, and the extent coming out an additional 24 feet, and existing drainage and erosion issues. Would, in your opinion, would the recommendation from staff right now to strictly increase the site coverage from 0.35 to 0.45, would that address those concerns?
I certainly don't want to speak for the neighbors there. I think it would help to mitigate some of their concerns. I think they pointed out a few different things with the proposal overall, but I think by not allowing the setback variance, it'll mean that the deck needs to be at least 5 feet from the fence line there. There's not much we can do about the difference in grade between the properties, but by moving the edge of that deck over to the required setback, it should help to reduce some of those concerns, I guess. So, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Further? Yep, hang on. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing on the proposal here, it looks like the intent was to have a staircase built kind of along the side of the house, along an existing kind of concrete walkway. And I was curious whether that was discussed with the homeowner as potentially just being, it looks like he wanted to extend the deck all the way back within that setback. But to me, it seems like you could maybe just build the staircase within that setback and not the entire deck. I was just wondering if that was discussed at all, Troy.
Go ahead, Troy.
Just looking at the plans there, it might be confusing which side of the deck the stair is proposed on. The stair is, as drawn, is proposed at the sort of at the rear parcel line side of the property. I think the part of the rationale for proposing the deck at the reduced setback was to keep it in line with the hot tub deck there, which was approved by previous variance through Board of Variance for the hot tub deck with the reduced side setback. And I think that was part of the rationale there for the deck. And I think the applicant explains about the just trying to maintain accessibility to the new deck. But I think our view there is just looking through the photos of the site, there's still room to maneuver around the hot tub using the hot tub deck there, and still being able to access the overall deck. And again, I think just given the large size and the proximity to the shared property line, we think that scaling that back would still allow for quite a large deck and help the owners and guests to the house there to enjoy the backyard. So yeah, so I think just to get back to your question there, the stairs are at the proposed right now at the very back of the house, or very back of the deck towards the rear parcel line.
Are you the owner or the neighbor?
It's okay. That's good.
First of all, hello council, hello mayor, thank you for your time, muchly appreciated.
Yeah, if any clarification you could provide.
Sure.
These properties up there are really narrow.
Yes,
And it's a challenge.
it is.
On many different fronts. However,
Absolutely.
we've still taken into account with the narrow lots, the setbacks and all of the other requirements, to get the properties right. So, speak to the variance.
Sure, absolutely. Firstly, a single step up to this deck is meant to gain access for those not as able. It is not meant to be wheelchair access, but it is meant to be accessible for those with limited access. The intent is to also cover the hot tub pad along the east side of the house. As far as the drainage and erosion goes, I was not aware that that was a major concern. of the deck. I know the neighbor had actually come on to this neighbor's property and moved his, where the downspout comes down off of his roof. It must have been leading eventually into his yard. Part of this project is to actually grade the trough to the other side of the property and leave water under the deck to the rear of the property. So erosion would be less of a factor for both 253 Stemwater and the neighbor to the east. As far as speaking to the size of the deck, my client is between two houses. This is a single story home between two very tall homes with very little access to, and maybe this isn't a major point for him or for the council, but he has limited access to the sun. He has limited access to the actual site of the ski hill. His intention is to have a larger yard space to use that gives him the ability to get out on a flat surface, have it easily accessible, and to have access without being blocked by the neighbors. I'm not sure if what the neighbor's concern was raised. I didn't get to see that note in was erosion the only concern that the neighbor had brought forward in the late submission? I hadn't seen it. I only saw the notes previous to that. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, sorry, I can help to clarify there. So the neighbor's letter had pointed out a few different concerns. Just again with the difference in grade between the properties and the impact of the deck being closer to the property line might make it challenging for maintenance of the fence between the properties. There's concerns about the construction and the erosion there. So I think that's a good comment that about helping to direct that drainage to the back would be helpful. There had some concerns about maybe impacting the fence integrity between the properties. The increased site coverage and the deck production towards the yard. I think they just felt that there was a potential impact there on privacy of their backyard. And just how, with how close the deck could be to the fence and to the adjacent property.
Sure.
And the last point was referencing the hot tub patio. Again, getting back to the results of the drainage issues not yet rectified by the owner. So again, I guess you're concerned about your point made about changing the grading on the site there to redirect that drainage, but I think what they're getting at was where the downspout comes down and kind of directs it into between the properties.
That's what I mean. The grade will not so much change as the downspout will actually lead to the other side of the house, the west side of the house, and be filtered down into a pit that's going to contain the rocks and the larger debris that comes out of the holes that we dig. The idea is that the drainage can then put into that some drainage pit, as it were. Rather than water to the neighbors, because the neighbor is lower and the neighbor on the east side is much higher, so water obviously comes across his yard's level. Speaking to the privacy, no matter how close to the property line, I don't think it'll change privacy, as even if you were within the 1 meter overhang. I think put there that's 0.38 meters. Moving back 25 inches, I don't think it's going to change privacy. We're moving back. No matter how far you move the edge of the deck back, the privacy will not change. But I see that to be sort of a good point. Is there anything else I can speak to as contractor? Questions for me? I'm here just representing the homeowner. It was not my
you've helped clarify things.
I hope
Thank
I
you.
have. I'd love to answer any more questions if I've missed something or if I've neglected to answer anything. But
Sorry, we're good for now.
okay, thank you so much.
So Troy, what have there been any other conversations with the owner, since the last meeting is there a compromise here, I guess is the question.
Well,
Because how much room is there to work with?
Well, I guess council has some limited options that staff has has pointed out in both meetings here now. So you have staff's recommendation on the table here to be voted. You have the option of going back to approve both variances as requested by the owner and the representative here today. The other option is to refuse the variance request outright, and they can either come back with an alternative plan if it still requires variances, or they could proceed to build a deck within the bylaw requirements, which we pointed out in our report still would allow up to nearly 730 square foot deck to be developed on the back parcel. So I think staff's recommendation is a compromise and an attempt to balance multiple interests here. It's our view that the recommendation still allows a fairly significantly large deck that allows the owners, guests to enjoy the backyard as requested. But then it helps to minimize or mitigate some of those concerns raised by the neighbor, and I think kind of better follows the intent of the bylaw there. So the recommendation is, in our view, the compromise for the position here.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Comments around the table?
I
I
was
guess,
I was just gonna say, Don, my concerns, my biggest concern is the drainage, and if they're gonna add a drain pit and push the water to the other side to the drain pit, I mean, that's the one thing they have most control over. That would probably have the biggest impact, and it sounds to me like that's a pretty viable solution. Just a comment.
yeah, thanks for that. Councilor Dunnebeck.
Yeah, if I can just add to Jason's there, comment is, it sounds like all three parties should need to sort of ideally talk about perk pits and how they can mitigate overlanding water and erosion and work together so that ultimately everybody's happy and no land is being disturbed.
It sounds like they're on that path.
You know.
Further comments? So the motion we have on the floor, as Troy has just summarized, is allowing the first variance and not the second. It sounds like with these changes, council is amenable to looking at that second, favorably at the second variance. Am I reading that correctly? No. Yeah, well, first, the motion that's on the floor is to reject the second variance. So if we were to approve what's there right now, we'd have to come back, I guess. Help me out there, Troy. What would the process be? Because once you've turned the variance down, that basically means another application needs to go in, does it not?
So I think if council wants to proceed with the response option 1 in the report, then I guess I would deflect back to Maurice here on procedure wise, whether it's better to propose an amendment to the motion on the table to add or to modify that, I guess, to the response option 1 rather than to the recommended response.
At this stage, it would be better to propose an amendment to add section, like allowing the variance to include section 4.093I to increase the projection of a deck into the side yard setback area from 1.5 meter to 2.12 meter. And which means that the deck would be as close as 0.38 meter from parcel line. And that would be added to what we already have on the floor. So you have someone that wants to do that amendment.
We need a mover for that. Councilor Roy moves that amendment.
Yes.
We have a seconder. Councilor Rupp.
I'll second it to put on the floor. I would like to ask a question though after you.
Okay, seconded. Okay, discussion on the amendment.
Yes, if I could then before we approve that. May I ask you a question? That looks like what, half a meter to 25 inches? What is that? What are those 25 inches moving towards the fence going to accomplish? What's the purpose of that in the first place? So that there's such a small space on the actual east parcel line?
It would create obviously a dead space between, which is, I mean, access that they were concerned about. That 25 inches would be a dead space. It would also, it's just covering the edge of their existing concrete pad and continuing that line for aesthetic for essentially covering up the concrete pad. And there are some pictures. If you look at the entrance, that small entrance where there's a concrete pad beside the home is the only access to the yard. And the idea is that the deck would start there and continue out back with no bump in or yes, changing
Yeah,
the line, have the line continued right from the side of the concrete pad.
So it's aesthetic as much as anything, and there's still 3/8 of a meter, which is the 25 inches. It's from the parcel line, and the parcel line is where the fence is that correct?
The fence, their fence is back from the actual parcel line. And so this 38 centimeters, I guess, around 15 to 16 inches. I think it's actually slightly more than that, but I gave a little bit of space there for I would say
Okay.
it would actually leave space would be more than 0.38 of a meter because they are somewhat back from the property line as well.
Right.
If I could just add to that, just to speak about the space, I guess, between the fence or the parcel line. It's a difference of, as proposed by the owner, it would leave about a 1 foot gap, plus or minus a little bit extra there, as we just heard. Or if they followed the bylaw, they'd be at least 3 feet from the property line. So it's a void space either way. The extra few feet helps pull the deck away from the parcel line, away from the fence. And keep in mind that the deck surface is nearly as high as the fence or just below the height of the fence. That's certain spots, right?
Okay, we're talking on the amendment now, so I'm going to call the question on. Oh,
McGuire.
sorry, Councillor McGuire, got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak briefly.
Yeah, go ahead, Woody. Sorry about
think
that.
I think I'd be open to, allowing that step up to the deck that was discussed and that I pointed out earlier. If it was just a step and landing to access the deck, but having an entire deck a foot away from the fence line doesn't seem like a good idea to me. So I'll be voting against this.
Sorry, Woody, say that again. Your last part, you broke up there.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'll be voting against this motion as amended because I feel like the 1 foot away from the fence line for the entire deck seems a little bit too much of a variance.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, that's just, if you don't mind. Yeah, but I mean, just, I don't know how you're gonna ever get in there if you, to Woody's point, to kind of bolster what he's saying, like, I don't know how to get there if you ever need to do any type of maintenance or whatever on that deck. Literally left yourself space. Yeah.
Just a reminder to use the mic.
Thanks, Woody.
The concrete pad is built up to meet the main floor of the house. So there will be space underneath the deck and access to the underside of this deck, not.
No, I was not talking about access to the underside
Oh,
of the
you
deck.
mean
I was talking about
access
the maintenance of the fence.
Access to the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, their fence is back from the property line and the deck is 15 to 16 inches back from the property line, so.
Thank you. So, given the width of these lots and everything that's crammed in, no matter what they're considering doing, there's not an awful lot of room and not a lot of impact on plus or minus. It's just very difficult space to work with. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the amendment, and the amendment was to include the second variance as part of the overall motion. So I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Cairns is opposed, and Councillor McGuire is opposed. Correct, Woody?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
opposed to the setback amendment. I'm supportive of the overall amendment, just not the setback.
Yeah, the amendment included both, though. As amended, it's not broken into two different pieces.
Yeah, so I'm
Sure.
opposed.
Not sure you want to make an amendment to the amendment at this point.
He's just pointing out
He's just
he's
opposed.
opposed to the second.
Yeah, okay, cool. I misunderstood. Thanks, Woody. Okay, so Councillor Cairns and Councillor McGuire are opposed. The amendment is carried. Now, on the question of the overall variance, any further conversation on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? No. Yeah, this is on the amended motion now. The amendment carried. This is on the amended motion. So Councillor Cairns is opposed. Councillor McGuire
Still opposed.
is opposed. That motion is carried. These properties are just very difficult to deal with. I think there are another 10 or 12 of them up there that are blank right now. So this probably won't be the last time that we're talking about variances up there. Thank you, Troy, for all the comments on that. I appreciate that. Okay, next up under new business, we have the report on take action on radon program. And the motion is that council receive as information the take action on radon summary report as attached to the report from the building official dated October 10th. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Royer seconds. Further discussion? Go ahead, Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a couple quick remarks about the report here and to thank Pam Workington there for the presentation earlier. Yeah, I think it just really shines a light on a really important issue for our community and many other communities. It's not, it's a common issue throughout the country. That being said, I think the results from the testing that occurred last winter, a bit eye-opening for us. I think we were, certainly expected to see some results that tested higher than everyone would like to see. But I think the extent of that was, like I said, an eye-opener for us. So a couple of points I want to make. So we'll make sure that there's this summary report and slide deck and some other resources are made available on the city's website for anyone looking for information. Of course, there's already a host of other information widely available for anyone that has questions on the matter. We do have another opportunity to participate in another test kit challenge this winter, and we've indicated our interest in doing that. I think it's very important that anyone that wishes to has access to testing kit. So we'll work with the group here to make sure that that is made available again. And of course, the information available will have how to find someone that's certified and putting in radon mitigation, and try to get as many homes picking up on that as if necessary there. So, yeah, I want to just thank for the presentation again before and council's help in spreading the message here. So I think within probably 1 or 2 months here, we'll have those kits available.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Troy. And from the sounds of it, both on the presentation and some of the material we've seen, this would apply to folks with new homes as well as the, those that are older.
Yeah, I think for myself, that was one of the things that, I sort of had falsely understood that it was mostly mostly older homes that it applied to, but the amount of results in some of those newer homes. And I think in many cases, the good news for them is it's quite easy for them to add the mitigation now. Most new homes will have the roughed-in mitigation work installed at time of construction, so it's simply just adding the fan, which is much more lower cost for them. But even with the mitigation into existing homes, encourage everyone that's tested for that to reach out to a certified professional and get a quote done and try to get that work done as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you. One other thought, I guess, with the new homes, especially those that are airtight, like let's call it step code 4 or 5. The air exchangers that are used to exchange air are somewhat efficient or effective at also releasing radon. But it's also not uncommon for those to be stepped down in the wintertime, where it's only on maybe for 15 minutes or 20 minutes an hour. Probably makes sense to make sure that those are on, constantly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point is sometimes new homeowners or new owners of newer homes don't always understand very well the systems that they have or how to operate those. And so I think that's part of the building awareness is just understanding how their HVAC system works and is there to help protect them just from heat loss and energy efficiency, but also from radon. And even I think there's a comment earlier about what if someone installs the radon mitigation and then does some other project in future years that is detrimental to that system. So that's part of just building awareness and making sure that people understand how those systems operate and how they're intended to help protect them.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have the contribution agreement with Columbia Basin Trust, CBT. We not vote on receipt. Thank you, Maurice. Keeping me honest. I will call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the CBT contribution agreement associated with landscape design at Center 64's outdoor recreation space. A couple of motions here. The council directs staff to include in year 1 of the 2024-2028 financial plan a capital expenditure of $18,200 to allow for the creation of a design and the preparation of a request for proposals related to the landscaping of the space adjacent to Center 64. And further, that council directs staff to include $18,200 in offsetting revenue for the project, with the identified funding sources being grant funding and contribution from the Kimberley Arts Council of $5,000, grant funding of $13,200, and contribution from the Arts Council of $5,000. And further, the council authorized the chief admin officer to sign the CBT contribution agreement in the form attached to the report. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts, thank you. Councillor McBain seconds. Any discussion on this? Pretty straightforward. This is the space where the bandstand or the stage is going to go immediately adjacent, where the tent has been for events in the summertime for concerts and things. This is going to provide some landscaping and grass so that we don't have to bring the chairs and sit in the gravel in the course of watching these awesome concerts that the council brings in. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the 2022-2024 BC Active Transportation Network Infrastructure Grant application. And the motion on the floor is that council direct staff to develop and submit a grant application to cover 70% of the funding required to complete the Knight Road realignment project as outlined in the Active Transportation Network Plan, and that council direct staff to include in the year 1 of the 2024-2028 5-year financial plan the grant dependent completion of the Knight Road realignment project with 70% with 70% of the project, or $268,000, being funded through the British Columbia Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program. The remaining $115,000 is funded through the general operating capital reserve. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Lots of multi-syllable words in there, Troy. Are you speaking to this? Or is Pam? Or is Nicole?
I
Go
can speak to
ahead.
the grant application.
Yeah,
for
go
sure.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the third round of the Active Transportation Network grants. We received one for Lindsay Park. We received one for Marysville, and this one is in the Kimberley Independent School area. It'll join Upper Chapman Camp with Lower Chapman Camp and develop a multi-use pathway that will lead into rails to trails where there is no multi-use pathway currently. So yeah, we've been quite successful with these grants in the past, so we hope that we continue.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. Further council? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Oh, sorry, Woody, didn't see your hand. If I'm moving ahead too quickly, jump in, please.
Yeah, I just had a question on this one. I was curious with the scope of this project, whether that includes some sort of realignment of the road there, or is it just is that just misleading name? I'm just curious what the scope is.
It is in conjunction with that capital project to realign that road. So
And
it
is
will be
this-
taking that extra portion of Knighton Road out.
Mhm.
And yeah,
And-
realigning that down through Knighton.
So,
Yeah.
so this quote that you, or this estimate that you have of, I think it's 300 grand or whatever it is that just the active transportation portion of this project?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have individual travel and expense grant application through the community grants, and it's that council approve the grant application submitted by the applicant for a travel and expense grant to attend an international hockey tournament and direct staff to process payment of $500 as authorized by the community grants policy. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. Any comments, Pam? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The policy allows for an international applicant to receive $500 grant.
Okay, cool. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. The 2023 Next Generation 911 funding approval. Motion on the floor is that council direct staff to include in year one of the 2024-2028 financial plan an operating expenditure of $45,000 to support local preparedness for the implementation of the Next Gen 911. And further, that council authorized the chief admin officer to execute the approval agreement related to the UBCM 2023 Next Gen 911 funding in the form attached to the report. Councillor Royer moves, Councillor McBain seconds. Discussion. It's probably worth a mention on the next gen at least, and kind of what we're setting up for. Who would like to speak to this? Go ahead, Scott.
The author of the report. UBCM has been generous enough to offer us $45,000 towards the implementation of the CRTC's new Next Generation 911. Basically, that allows for transfer of text, video, modern ways of getting information across that 911 currently doesn't handle very well. The $45,000 would be used over 3 years for public education, training for Kimberley Fire, and for mapping in GIS.
Thank you. More to come on the cost of the system itself. It's going to be fairly expensive to make that move, but I think there's a fair amount of government money in the form of grants that are going to be available to municipalities as this implementation goes forward. Not a lot of information on that yet, but this 45K is meant to help municipalities prepare and position for what is to come. Go ahead. Yep, comments. I'm calling for comments at this point, council. I will now call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have item 6 under new business, which is the request for rainbow crosswalks. And the motion on the floor is that council directs staff to include a budget request to paint a rainbow sidewalk at Marysville Elementary School in 2024. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Royer seconds. Discussion. Scott, go ahead.
So at our last meeting in September, we received correspondence from a parent of a child at Marysville Elementary School requesting that the city paint a rainbow crosswalk at the new active transportation network, the new construction down there. Based on our experiment with the Plattsville Rainbow Crosswalk, it's a high traffic area. It's very costly to paint. So staff, if staff are directed to paint rainbows or decorative symbols, which is largely a political decision, we would recommend painting it on the sidewalks where they won't be driven upon, or get a bit creative and maybe have rainbow benches or bridges to accomplish the same symbol. I touched a bit on the relative costs. It's considerably more expensive to paint a rainbow than to paint white. However, it does line up quite well with council's strategic priorities of inclusivity and civility, and with the OCP, our community character, and to be a diverse, safe, caring community. I put a little information in. It wasn't clear from the letter whether the MOTI was going to be involved, but I put some information in on how crosswalks would look if they were painted on the highway. But staff are recommending that if council wants to make a statement like this, that it be painted on the sidewalk rather than the crosswalk.
Thank you. Councilor McBain.
Yeah, I like that idea, Scott, because I think the key thing is just the intent and the messaging that of inclusion that we're trying to foster, especially at a school. That should be a primary place for inclusion. I will say that the paint that we have at by the Plattsville is held up really well, despite of some idiots doing burnouts on it. But no, I really like this idea that you just proposed, and I think it would be I think it would absolutely meet the intent of what we're. So to me, the sidewalk makes a lot of sense.
Councillor Dunneback.
I appreciate and understand the rainbow and everything that it stands for. I also see a really large number in front of me. I think we have a couple of rainbow sidewalks or crosswalks here that actually me and my daughters have quite a bit of fun on the weekends as we jump back and forth and yell. I'm on red and I'm on purple, I'm on yellow. It's actually quite fun. But let's remember that for 6 months of the year, our roads are covered in snow and it's covered up. So I wonder if we could entertain a thought of maybe erecting a beautiful flagpole so it's always flown beside our Canadian flag, our BC flag, our Kimberley flag. It's visible to everybody all the time. It's more cost effective and we can have them all over town.
So to be clear, this isn't about a crosswalk. The motion on the floor was a sidewalk in front of Marysville School, which.
Pardon me. I would rather see a flagpole than a sidewalk. So I'm against painting a sidewalk.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
I would just say, one thing we could do, Scott, if we're just going to receive a proposal, is have a couple ideas, I guess, and so that we could choose from. I think that would make sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if this motion were to pass, we would come back and say, for this amount of money, we could paint this much sidewalk, come back with a few options and a few different price points.
Councillor Cairns.
I'd appreciate that. I think the discussion is great. And I appreciate the ideas coming forward. And yeah, I was going to point out that I think the idea of the benches is excellent as well. So same idea. I'd love to hear the options and the costs and how we might be able to bring maximum benefit from this. So thank you.
Awesome. Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, more of the same. I just think $20,000 is a lot for some paint, and I also am reading in this report that it seems like it needs to be a crosswalk that has traffic lights or stop signs, which I think that location doesn't have. And yeah, I'm generally supportive of these types of projects, but just don't want to see $20,000 worth of paint thrown down there, especially when we have one uptown, which is beautiful already.
Okay, thanks for that, Woody. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. It's not uncommon to see buddy benches on school property. Typically, it's a bench where everyone knows that if somebody's sitting there, somebody wants to talk, then they go and sit on that bench and somebody will come and talk to them. And those kind of buddy benches are ideal for that kind of a rainbow. But where are we going to put benches? And now we've got one at Marysville School, and then we're going to have one at McKim, and are we going to have one up there at Lindsay Park? Like, where does this begin and where does this end? It's a deep hole in terms of $45,000 a crack.
So, so once again, the 20 grand was for crosswalks, not some of the other ideas that have been put on the floor. This particular motion is that staff direct council to include a budget request for a sidewalk. But as we've heard around the table, staff will also go and look at other options that may or may not impact that budget request. We have some freedom to be able to, some flexibility to be able to move as we go forward on this. I think the key thing here is that we're directing staff to look at alternative ideas that are most cost effective. Fair enough? Yeah. Last comment, go ahead, Sue.
Just a last comment. I just have been hearing from people that a couple of locations that people would love to see benches if there were to be a bench going up would be in McDougall Park as one spot, and then possibly at the Flynn by St. Mary's Bridge. So there's other locations I think besides the schools, but I just want to throw that out there as an idea as well.
Thanks for that. All right, call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed?
The motion doesn't say what you suggested. It says
Yeah,
sidewalk.
that's correct. Budget request. It's a budget request for a sidewalk. That is the motion. Yeah. Yeah, and options, further options to come back from staff with budget implications.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item number 7 is the check run in the order of $1,553,393 to be approved as paid. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Any non-routines anybody wants to point out?
I think it's a large one. It's a 3-week one because the girl was away for a while. We had a little one last time and we were doing catch up. A lot of big money coming forward to the people that have been doing big work, to McKay Contracting and to the Galley Equipment Services. Those people, those are big time projects that are being, power paving and so on. So we probably haven't seen the end of them yet, but the big chunk of money.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandra. Further comment? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, item number 8 relates to the late correspondence that came in, which was the letter from Donna Briggs. Just grab it here.
Looking for support.
I'll get there.
Looking for support for
I'll get there. Yeah, if everybody has read through it, they're basically putting in a grant application to get an upgrade and to improve the snowmaking on Dreadnought Race Run. The idea here is that they could do some pre-season training early in the year, and it would provide snow on that run very similar to what it does for the main run. We don't have any natural snow and we've got snowmaking going on. So they're looking for a letter of support from the city. And I have a mover, please. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. Next up, we have question period. Any questions from our gallery? All right, hearing none, members of the public may in fact call in and ask questions about anything contained in tonight's meeting. The number to call is 800-741-7180. And when prompted, the meeting number is 2774-201-4872. The microphone will be unmuted for the public during question period. So call in now if you have any questions pertaining to items on the agenda this evening. And while we're waiting to see if anybody can navigate that that process, we'll do our roundtable. All right, Councillor Royer.
Thank you, Don. Not too much to report except for the public notice call for Kimberley Accessibility Advisory Committee members. I just have a couple of questions that came up when the people were asking about this. It says 6 members and you pick the applicants. Can there be more than 6 members on the committee?
The total members is 7, including the government.
If somebody wants to come in and be a member at the end, like a number 8 or 9, no go? Okay, you just really clarified that. Thank you.
And it's actually council that picks that appoints the applicant. So I'm receiving the application. And when I have enough applications that we would have quorum on the committee, I'll bring them forward for council to do the appointment.
Perfect. Thank you, Maurice.
Anything further?
That's all I have to report right now. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Dundeback.
We haven't had our AGM for the Underground Mining Railroad Society this year, but we did have a little hiccup happen that sent Mick on a bit of a tilt-a-whirl, and tilt-a-whirl's probably an underestimate. We've been working to try to keep moving forward with our restoration projects, and there's many of them there. And we had some money from the regional district to restore the eaves on the shop, also known as the carpenter shop back in the day. And unfortunately didn't get the cooperation tech timely matter and had to hand back a check. Tech has advised me that they are going to redeem themselves and help pay for this. Maybe redeem is a hard word, but anyways, long story short, Mick was quite upset with that, and it really sort of derailed him a little bit. But we did get the platform finished this year, so we can aid and assist for people that have disabilities to get on, maneuver, and off quite a bit nicer, and it's really awesome. And I had a brief meeting with the Trail Society today in my office, just more of a meet and greet to let them know who I am and what they are, and hopefully get to attend their AGM here November 7th to see what the direction they're going with that. I think their one thing that he brought up was that they're sort of going to slow down on the trail building and start a little bit more of a maintenance program, which I was really quite happy to hear about. Other than that, just enjoying this beautiful fall and just soaking it all till tomorrow when everybody's looking for me.
Till we leave this meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Jason.
Yeah, I think last meeting I was at, I said I was, when I was in person, I talked a little bit about, last meeting I had with the library committee and, pretty exciting, news. There was, I think I'd reported previously, there was some pretty substantial grant money that came in this year to the library, which was really welcome news. And it's given them an opportunity to, create some better workspacing for staff. They've been working in pretty tight quarters there for a considerable amount of time. And so hopefully we're going to be able to move things around, get some new equipment for staff to work more comfortably and more effectively. And some other cool ideas that are that may be coming as well is one thing I didn't actually know. I mean, I should know when you look at books that have been sitting in windows for a long time, how much they fade. UV protection on the windows is something that we're looking at implementing, and it actually does prolong the life of the book by a considerable amount. So I think that's actually a pretty cool initiative to put into place. And really, quite frankly, everything is going fairly smoothly with the library committee. The new director is now permanently in place. There was a probation period that she had to go through for a bit, and now she's through that, and everything is going really well. And I don't know if it was mentioned at the last meeting, but I just wanted to give congratulations to the Dynamiters on being hosting the Junior A Championship this year, which I think was formerly the Cyclone Cup. There's some changes, yes, Cyclone Taylor Cup, some changes going on with junior hockey, but I think what it is a testament to Derek Stewart and his staff on how well they've built their team for a really consistent amount of time, and it's also a testament to the fact that Kimberly does really well in turnout. I mean, look around the league, I think it's got to be on the top end of the attendance record, and it's an awesome thing for the city. It's going to bring in all kinds of people, and it just reaffirms that we're the best small town in BC. So
Best small hockey town.
damn right. Okay, that's it.
So I noticed as well on that announcement, they were talking about both the size of our facility, but also the attendance that we get out. During the playoffs last year, the average attendance was a little over 1,000 per game. And there were 2 games where we hit north of 1,800. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, it is impressive. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Cairns.
Thank you. So on October 17th, the city, Nick Morissette and Rob Topping hosted the Mark Creek Watershed Tour, which brought members of the Watershed Committee, including Camp 4 BCTS, Corey Bearclaw with Aquatex, Wild Site, Friends of Mark Creek, and Kimberly Trail Society, to a couple of locations in the watershed. Interior Health is a member but did not attend. We had 3 stops in the watershed. And the first one was at the start of the Matthew Creek Forest Service Road at the Camp 4 harvest. And that's a wildfire interface prescription to reduce the intensity and risk of fire. So the intent of that prescription is not to prevent fire, but rather make a defensible space by changing the fire behavior. So it was really interesting to see what they had done there. And they retained 40 to 80 trees per hectare of the larger fire resistant trees. So ponderosa pine, larch, Douglas fir, and then removed the smaller trees in the slash. There was a provincial wildfire risk reduction treatment right across the road. And there was an attempt that had been mechanically treated. There was an attempt to burn it in late September. Unfortunately, that was just right at the point where the humidity levels were a little too high. Point this fall. So unfortunately, it didn't burn. Didn't achieve objectives there. Next, we went into the watershed and looked at the Mark Creek bridge that had been reworked by BCTS. It had shifted very slightly, and so they completed a full rework of it during the fish window last summer. And then we went to a couple of locations with BCTS and talked about potential approaches for future harvests. And Bob Gray has made himself available to connect with those from the Watershed Committee who wish to on November the 9th. And then the other item was that I attended the Core Summit on October 11th and 12th. No, it was 12th and 13th. And so that was at the Kimberley Conference Center, and the key themes for 2023 were circularity and the outdoor recreation economy. So fantastic presenters over 2 full days. And one of particular interest to Kimberley, I think, was the presentation by Dustin Adams from We Are One Composites. So they're facing significant challenges, enough that they're taking a look at really where they want to be located. And it was interesting how it was framed up, because Dustin Adams went on to describe what he would characterize as business nirvana. So, you know, instead of kind of talking about all the particular challenges that he's facing, he talked about what would work really well for building his business. So he started asking, his biggest challenge is actually attracting and retaining talent. So he started asking the question, what would bring you on board? And what he was hearing from potential staff is about the fact that they want to be located in a place that is focused on an active lifestyle and well-being. So he has been kind of looking around to see what would bring those pieces together. And he went on to describe his ideal, and that was Bentonville, Arkansas. And so quite interesting. They have a massive trail development, which is really for transportation and family fun. So very inclusive, but it also does include the super user type trails as well. And he described the marketing that the community had done around that, the type of community events to celebrate cycling, community engagement, and also that the attraction that's providing, the vibrancy, and how that brings the talent to that place. So immediately following his presentation was a presentation by Phil Shellhammer, who is from the Business Incubation Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the University of Arkansas Business School. And he spoke about how they made that happen in Bentonville in terms of their trail development. They call themselves the biking capital of the world. It's something along those lines. Anyway, apparently you can just do that. And it didn't necessarily fly well with some other communities right off the bat, but it's definitely put them on the map. It was a little bit cheeky, but it definitely put them on the map. So their population was in decline, and they were lacking workforce. So they set out on a mission to make it the best place to be. And so he cited some keys to their success, which included collaboration with the community and between cities in the region, acting as a collective in Northwest Arkansas with a vision for cycling. And he came to the CORE conference because he sees that what CORE is doing here doesn't exist anywhere else, and it doesn't exist there. So he's actually bringing CORE representatives to Bentonville, Arkansas, to talk with them about what they're doing and how to bring these pieces together. They have a lot of startups. They act as an incubator. Very cool things that are underway. Lots of conversations about repurposing old bikes into affordable cargo e-bikes for families and other people who need it. So an inclusive approach. So very, it was a really inspiring conference. Talked a lot about, you know, a key takeaway was the outdoor rec sector being highly place-based, tied to that natural environment. Mountain communities are an ideal environment to develop, prototype, and test products. So everyone was really, you know, loving Kimberley. And anyway, lots of interesting conversations to come out of that. So it was a really great 2 days. Really appreciated the chance to participate there. And then the only other thing coming up this week is the Kimberley Nature Park Society, where they're looking for any updates on so
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sue. Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yesterday, I haven't got very much to report. The council meeting for the Arts Council happened to be the last time we were meeting here, changed because of the holiday. But yesterday, my husband and I spent 4 or 5 hours with an interesting couple of people, a filmmaker, a local filmmaker and his film editor. They are putting together 2 projects. One is called Retro Cranbrook and the other is called Retro Kimberley. And he wanted my husband to act as a narrator for some of the film that he's doing. And so you can presume that that was probably film about mining, and that's really true. However, what he and she are doing is collecting every single piece of film or pictures or photograph or anything that's ever been gathered and saved, and trying to put it all together in one place and creating a YouTube overview of the history of Kimberley in film. And some of the stuff that they talked about was just fascinating. And of course, we had our share to offer things that they might look for and look at. And so it's going to be really interesting when it comes out, and I'll keep you posted on that. It's kind of fun that somebody sees the value in that. They're both retired from their work and they're doing this gratis. They are probably going to seek some grant money somewhere along the line, but they have amazing skills having worked in that field all their working career. And so it's going to be something to see.
Thank you for that, Sandra. Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, only thing to report from here is I did attend the first of my chamber meetings last Monday, and yeah, it was interesting hearing some of the concerns from businesses, and was able to direct them to the relevant departments in the city. And there's also an upcoming lease on the visitor center that's coming up for renewal. So that will be something that we'll be looking at soon, I'm sure.
All right, thanks for that, Woody. So very briefly from me, the last couple of weeks, I had a chance to do the welcome at CORE. Unfortunately, I also had regional district meetings that coincided with the 2 days of the CORE conference. So I got some of the presentations in, but not that many. Nothing really specific to Kimberley at the regional district meetings. As I did last month, I'll make sure and forward the board summary to everybody. And if you have any questions with that, just feel free to give me a call. I attended the Chamber of Commerce breakfast last week. It was a small business week. There was a presenter that presented a really interesting conversation on the keys, the 10 keys to small business success. The breakfast was held over a charcoal, and although it was a relatively small attendance, it was an enthusiastic one, and well worth the time and effort. There was also I attended a Tourism Kimberley board meeting here last week. We had a conversation about the strategic plan that's being put in place over the next short while. And once the details on the execution of that plan are in place, John Hamilton will be coming to council to present. That's what that strategic plan is, plus other updates with respect to Tourism Kimberley. Yeah, and that's it. So last call for last comments. Hearing none, move to adjourn. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Nunneback seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We're done. Thanks, Woody. Enjoy the rest of your time in California.
Thanks.